Well, g'day you rascally rabbits, hope you're all doing really well. We've had a very exciting week of all things Cities Skylines 2, and it's only just beginning. There's still so much more to dive into. Last weekend, I shared my experience playing Cities Skylines 2 and what it was like building the city for the trailer. I'm going to be talking more about that experience, but also diving into a bunch of your questions, doing my best to answer a lot of them, but then also trying not to spoil my NDA, of course. I'm going to talk a bit more about the city that I built for that trailer, talk about my plans for Cities Skylines 2, the first thing I want to build, and then my current series, the cities that I'm building in Cities Skylines 1, what's going to happen to them. Now, before I jump into the questions, I of course only really have a little bit of footage to work with, so just bear with me on that. Maybe listen to this one rather than watch it. And of course, when it comes to answering questions, I can talk about a lot of my experience and my opinions to do with the tools and the things that we know about the game. So if it's been explicitly shown within the trailer or if it's been mentioned on any of the store pages, I can dive into. But anything that hasn't been mentioned yet, I'm gonna keep my mouth closed. Can't really talk about any of that stuff. But there are a lot of questions I can answer and talk about my experience using those things. On the Paradox Interactive website, you can actually see there is a whole bunch of videos that are going to be released every week over the next couple of months that are going to go into all the different features of the game. So let's wait for them. They'll give you a really good insight into those things. But for me, I'm just going to talk about my experience. So let's just dive into it. Oh, hey there. So Future $2.20 here. I've just finished editing the video and yeah, this turns into a total ramble fest. So just know that going into this, nothing too groundbreaking on screen. You've been pre-warned. No one be mean to me in the comments. I know what this is. Now you know what this is. Let's go. First things first, a lot of people are asking about map size and scale. So I'm going to talk about these two things together because this is actually my biggest concern going into Cities Skylines 2. I was really worried about the map size. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I like the whole map. I like to use the whole map, at least plan to use the whole map. I don't always get to all of it. Because when I do build cities, I tend to have one large city and then multiple towns or two cities and connect them all up using roads and have all this environment around it. So I love that. So I love a nice big map. And I've gotten used to the maps in Cities Skylines 1. You know, at first I thought they're really small, but turns out I can fit quite a lot within these maps. So in Cities Skylines 2, are they bigger? I think it might be. I honestly don't know, and I don't know if I can make that comparison until I build New Dollarton in Cities Skylines 1, which I'm not going to do that. But I can say that it definitely feels a lot larger. The environment and the map do feel much larger than they do in Cities Skylines 1. And I think what helps is the fact that everything is just a little bit better scaled. All the buildings, all the models and assets, they just have a bit of weight to them. They feel like they're heavy and they feel like they're truly driving on these roads and they just fit really well. I think in Cities Skylines 1, you know, things are a little bit strangely proportioned, especially when the game first came out. And I think a lot of that has been corrected over time with DLCs and assets being made on the Steam Workshop. I think we got a better sense of the scale of our cities, but it still maintains a bit of a cartoony sense. You know, there's still a bit of cartooniness to the game. Whereas this is not the case with Cities Skylines 2. It feels very real. A lot of that comes down to graphics, but I think a lot of that also comes down to scale. I think that things just feel a lot more real within this game. You know, I think you get a bit of a sense when you're seeing the trailer, but when you play the game and flying around it, you feel like you're flying around on Google Earth. It feels very big and real. And it's not just the city, it's actually the scale of the environment. The environment feels massive. These mountains have so much weight to them. They feel like giant mountains towering over your city, and your city's big as well. So I think in terms of map, I don't know if it's technically bigger, but I reckon I can fit a city and a couple of towns on here pretty sweet. And in fact, I did do that, but more on that later. Also, you should note that the tile sizes are much smaller, but you can pretty much unlock all of them. So especially if you're used to playing Cities Skylines 1 vanilla, yeah, you're gonna get a lot more to work with. Next question, a lot of people are asking whether or not Cities Skylines 2 is harder than Cities Skylines 1. And in terms of gameplay, not in terms of mechanics or trying to make a big city, more so what's the gameplay side of things like? Now for me, yeah, Cities Skylines 1 was very, very easy. Still is very easy. Building a big detailed city, yeah, that's still very challenging. But, you know, trying to make sure that all the policies are right and getting good public transport and making sure that you've got the right demand can be kind of easy, particularly when you start making decent money. And of course, that is pretty ironic coming from me, who always makes a mess of their cities and never makes good money and it's always on fire or something like that. Yeah, I know I can't take care of a city, But without spoiling too much, Cities Skylines 2 is definitely a lot more challenging. You've got a lot more to take care of, but you've also got more tools to take care of those things. So for instance, the RCI is something that is pretty easy when it comes to Cities Skylines 1. It's very straightforward. Whereas this time around, it's very different. As you can see, you got a couple of extra colors down here. They're not always in high demand. So just because you need more workers for your industry doesn't mean you can just zone residential. You need to think a little bit more about that. And there were times where I was like, I really would like this type of zoning to exist in this area, but I had to change so many different factors to encourage that zoning to grow, for it to even want to be there in the first place. And there was just so much that went into it. So just making the city grow in a way that I wanted it to was actually very hard. Even though I was playing with unlimited money and, you know, I wasn't really worrying too much about policies and worrying too much about services. Actually, I was worrying a little bit about services, but, you know, I was trying to build a big city first, and then I was trying to implement those things afterwards, which I found really, really challenging. And that's not to say this is not for newbies, because I just think that, you know, if you are someone like me who plays Cities Skylines far too much, then you might find more challenges within this one, because there's actually just so much to unpack. But there is truly so much to this game, so much that the trailer doesn't show you, and you're just gonna find out during the feature highlight videos. So much that I didn't even realize when I was playing it. City Planner Plays was decoding lots of the trailer, and he was mentioning things that I didn't even realize. Going, oh, this is here and this is there. Oh, this is cool. And I'm going, oh, whoa, okay. How did I miss that? I've spent quite a long time in this game and didn't even notice those things. So yeah, just be prepared. There's a lot to uncover. A few people asking, how long did it take to build New Dollarton? So I've clocked about 140 hours in Cities Skylines 2, and not all of that time was building the city, probably 100 or so of that was. There was also a lot of terraforming that was done before I built it, so the map looked pretty different, and then I terraformed it so I could build something that was based on the things that I wanted to build. And then there's a lot of detail in the city that you're not seeing, so you might see it later on down the track, who knows. And there's also a lot of stuff outside of the city that you're not seeing. So there's a lot that went into it, a lot of planning, a lot of terraforming, a lot of building, a lot of trial and error, a lot of just playing around. So quite a lot goes into building a city in Cities Skylines 2, but with some more streamlined tools, it's a lot easier to build certain things that used to take ages and ages and ages. So this came together fairly quickly in terms of building a city. And there's a lot of details that I'm hoping you're better to see down the track. And on that, someone did ask what was not shown in the trailer that I wanted to be shown. Great question. I wanted someone to ask this. So I mentioned this earlier, but outside of New Dollarton were two towns. One of them was like a bit of a lakeside place, and you know, when we were storyboarding, or when they gave me the storyboard of what they were imagining for the trailer to look like, and this was still very early days, so a lot of shots that, you know, they wanted to be included. They sort of gave me some pointers and a bit of a storyboard of what it was going to look like, or what they thought it could look like, and then I sort of built New Dollarton with that in mind. And one of these shots was to include what I sort of imagined to be a lakeside town, but I guess it didn't have to be. I just sort of imagined it to be that. So I built a bit of a lakeside town nestled into the mountains. You can kind of see where it's at. It's kind of in this direction. We've also got another one over here. We've got a whole bunch of things outside of the city, but I mean, now looking back at it, of course, it's going to be filmed in the city. You know, that's where all the action is. That kind of showcases more stuff than if it was outside of it. So totally get it. I think it turned out great. But then in saying that, I also took some of the gameplay footage. So yeah, I guess that's also on me. This was taken in collaboration with Paradox Interactive. Some of the gameplay footage. This shot in particular was taken by me, the before and after one. So yeah, maybe I could have taken some of these outside of the city. So I guess that's on me. But yeah, I guess you can't show everything in the trailer, and I reckon you'll probably see more of New Dollarton down the track. All right, let's do a couple of rapid fire questions, and then I'll dive and ramble about another one. Trees, loads and loads of trees in Cities Skylines 2. Plenty, like so many, so many trees. Yayo wants to know about sound design. Yeah, it's lovely. There's a lot of great different sounds all over the place depending on whereabouts you are. I also want to mention the music in this is beautiful. So as someone who just turns all that off usually, music and sound, I listen to all of it. It's really, really nice in Cities Skylines 2. The music is just so good in this. What are the road tools like for new players? Excellent. You can, I mean, it's very easy to use. It's just as easy as Cities Skylines 1, if not easier. You've got more control. more control when it comes to detailing as well, so you don't really have to spend hours and hours on something. You can really just cross them over and you've already got the thing that you would have spent hours on in Cities Skylines 1. But then in saying that, you can create some pretty complicated intersections with not a huge amount of skill. I don't have a huge amount of skill when it comes to intersections, but I was making things pretty nice looking, I reckon. Mixed zoning. Do we finally have mixed zoning in Cities Skylines 2? You bet your bottom $2.20. We do. We finally have mixed zoning. This is pretty fun to play with. You can actually see me zoning a bit of mixed zoning down here. This will, of course, be perfect in those high density areas within your city where you've got some residential and commercial down below. Yeah, this is gonna be great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else we can do with mixed zoning in Cities Skylines 2. But yeah, this is here and it's a lot of fun. And this will be, of course, perfect for European cities. I was basing New Dollarton in the US, so a lot of the assets I'm using are US based, but I am also splicing in some European ones. You might see them every now and again. So I was able to cross them over, choose which ones I wanted to fit in the right spot. But from my experience, the European side of things looked just as great as the US side of things. So just keep that in mind. I never really built anything European based in Cities Skylines 1, but I can definitely see myself doing it in Cities Skylines 2. Alright, last question, but I'm going to dive pretty deep into it and I'm going to bundle in a lot of questions. So it's like a super question, a super last question. And it's in regards to what kind of stuff can we expect in Cities Skylines 2 that we already have in Cities Skylines 1? What sort of DLCs are going to be there? What sort of mods are going to be integrated? Assets? We've had so many updates. It's changed so much over the years. What kind of stuff's going to be there? And these were the questions I had going into the game. For me, I'm playing Cities Skylines 1 with all the DLCs, thousands of mods and assets. I've been playing since 2015, so I've seen the game change drastically. So I am so used to the things that I've already got within Cities Skylines 1. But I know that for new players going into Cities Skylines 1 for the first time, you're overwhelmed. Everyone is, I know that, because I get messages all the time, people saying, how on earth do you do this? What's this? And sometimes I see these questions, I think, oh boy, there's a lot to learn in Cities Skylines 1. But for Cities Skylines 2, what's already there? So yeah, you can probably already tell there are already some bits and pieces from DLCs in Cities Skylines 2. So you can see some similarities to Industries DLCs, and you can already see trams in Cities Skylines 2. People noticed there was a university campus. So yeah, there are bits and pieces that are already part of some of the DLCs, but they're definitely not expanded upon. At least some parts are not expanded upon. And I can see where new DLCs are going to fill gaps within Cities Skylines 2. And that's not me saying that it feels like an incomplete game. I am glad with how much is already there. It already feels quite overwhelming. I already said that I completely missed out on a whole bunch of stuff that City Planner Plays pointed out. I didn't even know existed. There were things that I didn't even dive into properly. And I've been playing for a while now. There's a lot to this game already with what we have. So there are going to be, you can already tell where DLCs are going to expand out certain concepts. And you can see where some of the DLCs that we have in Cities Skylines 1 are most probably going to be there down the track. And this is all, by the way, speculation. I've got no idea. I'm just imagining what could be there based on the things that I know have been there in Cities Skylines 1, and they will be very popular in Cities Skylines 2, no doubt. Obviously, like some DLCs, I feel like some DLCs in Cities Skylines 1 were a little bit random, like Sunset Harbor always felt a little bit random to me. But the mass transit, Industries, they felt a little bit more like complete packages. You knew what you were getting with those DLCs. And I can see where they're going to be expanding out Cities Skylines 2. And they know this because Cities Skylines 1 has only increased in popularity over the years, which is pretty rare for games. Usually when they're released, yeah, there's a bit of hype, bit of buzz, around a couple of DLCs, and then it slowly disperses. The game devs, they move on, the people move on, it kind of disperses after that. Whereas Cities Skylines has really just increased, which is kind of crazy. And they want the community to transfer over to Cities Skylines 2. And it really feels like Cities Skylines 2 is this new blank canvas that is very much different to Cities Skylines 1, that you can start to see where things are going to get embedded into. So much of this is cleaned up. It's almost like reshuffling your filing cabinet and then going, oh, this is going to go here now, and this is going to go there, and oh, this feels so much better. Or maybe not your filing cabinet. I've never owned a filing cabinet. Maybe it's more like reorganizing your kitchen shelves. And that's what it sort of feels like, because I can really see how we're going to expand on this new system, this new way of playing the game. And it feels like that's a real new way of playing the game. Because when I think about Cities Skylines 1 and when new stuff is released, whether it be a DLC or a mod or an asset, sometimes it's hard to figure out where it sits within the game. You know, sometimes it turns into a unique building, and then sometimes it's a park or a growable, or you have to search for it using Find It, or it sits awkwardly on your menu. This is going to be so different because I think they've already thought about all the stuff that's going to get introduced over the next few years, because everything sort of feels very much filtered and sorted out already, and you can see how all this makes way more sense. So that's what I'm really excited for. So in terms of what's in Cities Skylines 2 that's already in Cities Skylines 1, well, a lot of the stuff that we definitely need, that we want, and a whole bunch of new stuff that we didn't know that we wanted. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff that you didn't think you wanted, but now that you have it, you want it. But there is definitely room for things to be expanded upon, and I'm all for it because the modding community is probably my favorite part about Cities Skylines. I love searching on the Steam Workshop and discovering new assets or new bits and pieces or even just new mods. Absolutely, definitely new mods. I love finding new mods and using them. And then when DLCs are introduced as well, I've always loved that as well. So a game that gets expanded upon is something that I am all for. That's what I want. But I hope that answers a couple of your questions, at least. I know I'm being very vague and very general about some things. I kind of have to be. But we're going to get some more information over the next couple of weeks, over the next month. And to be honest, I'm probably going to learn some things as well from those feature videos. I'm excited. There's a lot to be excited about. I've got some big plans. So let's talk about them. So at this point, if you're a little bit sick of seeing the trailer by now, well, you've probably got a few more minutes of watching it. I got nothing left to show you, I'm afraid. This is just me continuing to ramble. It's just a stream of thoughts in my brain because a lot is going through there right now. What do I want to do when I get Cities Skylines 2? Well, I am keen to make New Dollarton again. Yeah. For the longest time, I've been wanting to make a city based on New York, and I thought I was going to do that in Cities Skylines 1. I've had an asset collection for many years now, and I just keep on adding to it thinking one day I'm going to do it. One day. But you know I've got too many series going on, so I just never did it. Never properly committed. But I even started drawing up a map and started planning it. Like, I really started planning this. But when Cities Skylines 2 was announced and I saw the different things you could do in it, and when I got it and started playing it, I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to make something based on New York. You can already probably tell that the game already looks great for a game based in America. But on the East Coast, I think perfectly because you've got the seasons. I loved seeing the city go through this snowy atmosphere. And then the row houses, the industry, the architecture, I think it all fits in really well. So that's what I want to do. I want to build something based on New York. And I say New Dollarton, but really it's not going to be. Or maybe it will be, but something that's going to be based around that area. If I was doing this for one of my series, there'd be places I just completely demolish and restart. And the map, I think the map's the biggest thing. I just completely changed that. It would be a different map entirely. So there are things that I would really like to implement. I also want to be working through the milestones or work through something, whatever it is, the progression. I didn't even touch any of that because I really wanted to leave that sort of side of things until I play for a video so I can kind of experience that for the first time and talk about that rather than, you know, kind of diving into it with a bit more skill under my belt. I think it'd be more fun to kind of work through that together in videos. But I also want to progress through the city just like it did with Mile Bay, where we have a small town and it grows and grows over time and then develops into a larger city, but a real large city. You know, we get quite big and just explore the different aspects of Cities Skylines 2 in those videos while we build something like this. And I reckon it'll probably last for a long time because I think lots of DLCs and assets will be introduced and we just continue to add to it. So that's my plan. That's my plan for Cities Skylines 2. But what about my current series? With Cities Skylines 2 coming out in late October, I have to admit, I am a little bit nervous with how much I can get done in both Sunset City and in Oceania. I would like to have a good chunk of it done by the time it comes out, but with how long it takes to build things in those cities and on those maps, and with how much I want to get done, it's hard to tell whether or not I'm going to be jumping back into Cities Skylines 1 when Cities Skylines 2 will be out. So that begs the question, what's gonna happen to those series when it comes out? And honestly, I don't really know because it's hard to tell whether or not I'm just gonna be consumed by Cities Skylines 2 and that's all I'm gonna have time for, or whether or not I'm still going to miss the things that are in Cities Skylines 1 because we just have so much stuff already there, and there's still a buzz for the series, and I can see myself just going back and forth between the two. But I can also see a scenario where we just go, nah, we're just doing Cities Skylines 2 now. And if it wasn't coming out in October, then yeah, we'd just be continuing on with these series. But I just don't see myself, I don't know, I kind of see both sides, you know? I might be working on it still, and I might not be. What are you guys thinking as well? Are you thinking that you'd still want to see both these series on my channel when we've got Cities Skylines 2? It's hard to tell, so I guess I don't know at this stage. And I guess my plan up until October is just to push on, just to get as much done as possible within both those series. And I'm not gonna lie, I am feeling pretty disappointed in myself for not getting as much done as I wanted to before Cities Skylines was released. I guess it's still a bit of a wait and see, but yeah, I mean, my series are always way too ambitious. I always think something's gonna take 1 episode, it takes 3. It's just one of those things. Something I will probably never learn as well, because I'm already thinking so ambitiously for things that I want to do in Cities Skylines 2. I just hope that things are going to be easier to make in Cities Skylines 2 so that I can get to some of the other projects and other builds that I don't usually always get to in my series, because I find that I spend hours and hours detailing or working on intersections or fixing mods or dealing with bad performance. The list goes on. There's a lot of things that take more time than I ever expect. So then, what are my plans for Sunset City and Oceania? Well, I plan to expand out into some other areas that I haven't gotten to yet. So rather than just focusing on the nitty-gritty bits and pieces and details of the city, I'm going to get out of the city a bit more. Next weekend, you're going to see an Oceania episode. There'll be a bit of a city thing there. But then after that, I've got a couple of just crazy, again, stupidly ambitious ideas that I've already started somewhat. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I've got an idea, but it's out of the city, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then for Sunset City, the same thing. I want to get out of the city and work on some other areas that I think are the more iconic places that I would really like to develop up, and really focus on those episodes that I am the most excited about, because there are video ideas that I've had for ages, but just haven't gotten to yet because things just keep on coming up and I go, oh, I'll just work over here, I'll work over there, and I'll just do this now. Oh, now that I'm already over here, I'll just work on this part. And then all of a sudden it's been a year and we haven't done that thing that the whole reason why I started the series in the first place hasn't happened yet. And I'm also a little bit burnt out with detailing. I'm a little bit over it. I think I've done a lot of detailing episodes in Sunset City. I just want to expand. I just want to see areas developed, built, and places established, because to be honest, I actually think I am more interested in developing large places than getting into the nitty-gritty of detail. But I think I get totally sucked into the detail side of things, but it's not really something I always want to do. I actually much prefer expanding out bigger and seeing the bigger picture of things. But I think I've been getting a little bit too sucked into making very detailed areas, and I just need to cut that out, because I'm actually kind of burnt out by it. So I'm just gonna move on to expanding out, and I think that actually fits in better with what I want to do at the moment, with getting a little bit more of these places established. And then for Sunset City, I would like to work on Sunset Beach, which is my version of Miami Beach, and work a little bit around there, and then I want to get out of the city, and I don't know where I'm gonna work on then. I think maybe Cuba, or maybe Tampa, or maybe the Space Center, or maybe the farmlands, or maybe the airport, just something big. I want to work on something massive. What do you think I should do? But I guess that's pretty much it for this video. I don't know what this video is, by the way. If you made it this far, thanks. It's barely an analysis of Cities Skylines 2. It's more of a insight into my feelings towards it, and just a little bit of a ramble. So thanks for sticking around. I don't even know what you're watching at this stage. I've just got a black screen in front of me. You're most probably still watching the trailer, so sorry about that. And a big shout out to my patrons who may have just sat through all this just to see their name on the screen or hear the name shouted out right now. Eclipse, David B. Bounce, Alvaro Fustaroos, definitely not how I say your name, I'm sorry about that. Jay Place, This Legend, Samuel Stelzer, Barry Blue Boy, Riley Callahan, Ryan, Rixo12, Christopher Wren, Damo Cooper, Nick Serafine, Ferg, and Patrick Landout. Cheers, legends. Catch you all in the next one. See ya.